The Citizen Mike Show. News. Commentary. Interviews. Citizen Mike Show starts now.
Welcome to the Citizen Mike Show. Thanks for tuning in. We do appreciate it. My name is Mike Berdinsky. On my right is Ralph Tomaselli, the editor of the Record Journal, and our special guest in the studio tonight, Jason Zandri, Democratic Town Councilor. Jason, welcome back to the Citizen Mike Show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. I want to start though with the local elections. We're going to go sort of fast forward a little bit. Okay. November 2019. Are you going to be a candidate? Are you a candidate for a re-election?
Yeah, I actually came from the DTC meeting this evening.
Democratic Town Committee.
Yeah, the Democratic Town Committee meeting where they basically, all of us that want to be endorsed by the committee, we basically this month and next month will kind of make our little pitch. And just because we've been there before doesn't mean that they'll endorse us again. I mean, you really have to continually kind of work for your lunch, for lack of a better way to say it, because if there's a better candidate that comes through, they may want to put them up. So
right.
I did address the committee this evening and told them that I am interested.
So what did you say?
Well, I basically told them, I want to continue with the work that I've been doing. I want to be able to continue to be a voice for the people of Wallingford. I want to continue to be able to do the work that I've been doing, trying to hold the line on costs, maintain the services that we have, find creative ways maybe to kind of expand on them without adding a lot of costs, and then trying to be sensitive to, everything that's going on. You've got seniors that are always under pressure when taxes go up. You've got schools that are always under pressure to do more, which means they need more money. So there's always that balance. And then, of course, there's all the things that the municipality itself deals with: roads, bridges, police, fire, and so forth. Yeah. So it's a balance.
Ralph?
You brought up a lot of issues just in that answer, but having never gone through that process myself, the two of you have, do you ever feel like, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, are there issues sometimes that town committee members bring up that you have to say, no, I'm really not in support of that?
You do. You have to kind of come forward with the things that you personally want to champion. But you also have to listen to what other people are interested in having and try to find the balance between that. And even if it's something that you might not necessarily want or need for yourself, you listen to the people in the room, and then you kind of take it from that room and talk to other people. What's the temperature on that? If it's warmer than you actually think it is, you got to kind of take a look at it and go, never would have thought of doing that. I don't see any reason to not do it. There's a lot of people that seem to want it. So you got to kind of adjust your thought process. The way I try to approach things is, here's my core of the things that I think are important. And I've always got this buffer around that for things that I haven't thought of yet that other people bring. And then there's always the far ring, which I look at like, that'd be great to have, but we're just not in a position to have that. And those are the things I kind of let fall off the table, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, Jason, do you sense there's any topic or issue that seems to be bubbling up from the rank and file, from the town committee, or is it more of a general interest? And then the next would be, okay, so is that a platform plank? I mean, that's what the follow-up.
Yeah. So I try not as much as I can. Try not to put anything on the platform, for lack of better, because I like to look at all causes generically, right? Not like, gee, I'd like to attach that to my party, or the other side's going to attach it to their party. It's something that's got to get done. A community pool is a good example. I mean, there's a renovation thing that's coming through, but underneath the whole renovation process has always been the generic handling of the pool. The hours aren't long enough. They shut too early. There's no way to get passes, not easily. You got to go. So all these different things get brought to us. So what can we chip away at? So what we chipped away at this year was finding a way to extend the season by the 3 weeks. And that was that was bipartisan. It wasn't us or them or who. It started on both sides. I mean, this conversation has been kind of going on and off 6 years now. And we actually got into a position where we could tee it up and we took a swing at it. And we actually were able to get the extension.
Since we're talking about community pool, I want to come back to that on another issue. But it's somewhat remarkable to me that the mayor in his budget would put in only enough money to keep the pool open through mid-August. That was his original budget, and it took a motion and a unanimous town council to extend the season. I mean, I just find that remarkable. Did I confuse you?
No. I always have found it remarkable. So I just want to clarify, that's the way it's always been handled, right?
Well, I think this is the first time that I can recall. We're going to go to Jason to check his memory too. The first time that I can recall that the town council added money to make sure the pool was open.
No, but what I'm saying is the mayor has always closed the pool early.
I think he has.
Yeah, and I've scratched my head about it.
For a while it was we couldn't find the lifeguards. I think maybe the credibility of that ran out, and so the new.
Well, that argument that was always a false argument, because I mean the Y has got lifeguards all year round, but I mean. The regular process of having the lifeguards there does short circuit in the middle of August, because a lot of the lifeguards that are there are college-based people who go back to college at that point. But it just means that those lifeguards aren't available. Then the argument was always cost. Yeah. It's going to cost us more. So the end result this year was moving a little bit of money around from contingency. There was a pay increase for the line for counselors next term, whoever got elected. That was erased and pulled back in. And then the cost for the pool passes was bumped up to offset another $10,000. So by the time we were done, we shuffled existing money. We added money that would come in through pool tag sales to offset it. So now the argument isn't the money isn't there. The argument is, why can't we? Because now we've found a way to do it. What's going to be the argument for no?
So let's finish our discussion on community pool. We'll take up all the issues now, and then we'll come back to the local political scene. So all of these issues that you just mentioned, we've been talking about getting pool passes, the hours, is it going to be open late a couple of evenings during the week? All of those things have been kicking around for a while. The Park and Rec Department, John Gawlak, seems to have said consistently, we're thinking about it, we're studying it, it's under discussion, never specifically addressing it, and it's so easy to address. And now there has been in front of the council a plan to basically rebuild the pool. It would seem to be this would be the perfect time to line up the pool program, but all 9 councilors stayed away from that issue and just sort of letting it go without making sure that as long as we're having a new pool, you'll be able to get pool passes easier, sort of buttoning up these issues in a timely way. Your thoughts on my thoughts? So
I agree. I think there are times where we have to take a look at ourselves and like, what are we putting forward proactively? Why are we waiting for Park and Rec? You know, maybe they've tried it and gotten stalled out. Maybe there's some things that we could do.
Or maybe they were told not to do it.
No.
I mean, that could be too.
No. And well, I don't think anybody's ever told specifically not to do something. It may be very strongly suggested to think otherwise.
All right.
But I think that this was an opportunity to kind of, like I mentioned, tee it up and maybe slot it in, and it got passed. So now here's the opportunity. I've been pretty frank about my discussion points with the administration in a way that I believe that they kind of present and think things. And I think that they, a lot of times, will line up what it is they want to do to set up the point they want to make. And what I mean by that is if they want to spend money on something, they will build a case and spend it. And if they want to remove costs, they'll say they will not do the maintenance, they will not do this, they will not bring it to the forefront. Things fall off and go, nobody utilizes anymore, and they get rid of it. So I think a lot of the downward pressure on the pool has been maybe to make the case that maybe we don't need this anymore. The people have kind of done a backstop to that. They've been progressive about, I would do it if. And a lot of people have come forward with, if the hours are longer, if it was easier to buy a day pass, if. So now we were able to, one of the arguments was it's closed too early. So we just slotted that. It's now going to be open right to Labor Day.
Well, over the summer or rest of the spring, why not bring up the specific issues we've been talking about? Will there or will there not be food courts or food permitted or a concession stand? And if you give us the same old argument, well, we're thinking about it, well, we're studying it. Well, what have you been doing for the last 2 years? How will we get passes online or in some more convenient way and no longer tolerate, well, we're thinking about it, we're studying it? I mean, at what point does this come to a head, or does the council remain passive, sit back, approve $6 million for a pool, not knowing what the administrative policies are going to be and appearing not to care? I'm being a little harsh, but you know how strongly I felt about this over the past show. So we've got a real-life town council here. So
yeah, right. No, so you're not wrong, and I think this is our position. Now, I'll be blunt about it, like the whole thing with the concessions. The old building isn't ready for it, but that doesn't stop us from doing something. We could find out whether or not we could get food trucks in there, whether or not we could, whether it's charge them for space, or maybe make a situation where, hey, let's get the community really involved. Let's find out who's trying to do some fundraising and let them sell prepackaged food and soda and so forth, and get that food in there so that we can, again, if you kind of build the excitement around it, people will buy it and they'll consume stuff there.
My point is time is running out, and there's going to be some sort of a plan drawn up and presented. And, and once that's approved, in my view, there's no more leverage anymore. It's just going to be, it's an administrative problem. You guys butt out. And if you stand for that and authorize money, and tolerate the evasiveness of all these administrative policies that we, I think, care so much about, you deserve what you get in the long run.
No, I agree, and I can't speak for everybody else, but I will speak to the way that I'm looking at it. We've got the opportunity here. We've got the extra 3 weeks, and I've had people say to me, "I wish it was open a couple of hours later on even just some of the days."
Absolutely.
So I've responded to people that have asked me that. I said, you know what? This is where the rubber meets the road. If people are willing to pay for the pool passes, and more people are willing to pay, even though they're $5 more expensive, and it shows an increase, we've got a better argument next year of why not do 2 late days or 3 late days a week. So we've teed it up. They've got the opportunity. So if the passes are still sold and there's more of them, we get to come back and say, look, there's more argument to keep doing these things, adding on.
Just 2 quick process things. One, I was really surprised at the council move to keep that pool open longer in the summer, because it's been such an established policy by the administration, and the mayor just generally isn't flexible in these areas. So does that council vote to put money in the budget really force the mayor or obligate the mayor to keep that pool open longer?
So I'm going to take the first swing at it, and then we'll go over to it. He can't be forced, but for a lousy $30,000 and community pool, he'll do it. In this case, he'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that, because it's a small thing. I don't think he cares that much. It doesn't threaten his authority.
Okay.
If it threatened his authority and his initiative, he'd get his back up. But money can be appropriated by the council, but there's no forcing him to spend it. Jason, a quick answer. You sort of generally agree with my assessment of that, or
Okay.
But you had another process.
Well, the other one is you're bringing up all long term. If you have a new pool. The council wanting to have input on how passes are sold, the hours of the pool, etc. And isn't that the administration's area? I mean, how much influence could the council have?
I'm going to take a first pass at this, but it's going to be short, and then I'll go to Jason. It depends upon how active and how much leadership the council wants to assert in my view. Now, if the mayor is suspicious about online passes, you can't force the issue. But if you had 9 councilors speaking with the same voice and saying, knock off, the dilly-dallying and put together a program, or you don't get the money. Jason?
I agree. I mean, I agree. I mean, if we could come across as all 9, we could push it a little bit. But I have a strong suspicion that, especially to the direct point of online passages and purchasing,
Right.
I think we're going to run into resistance and we're going to see some party line towing.
Yeah, so you wouldn't see Cervoni or Laffin. They chair and co-chair of the technology committee. Right. Okay. Last on the pool. The size of the pool is going to be reduced. We know that current footprint is 42,000 square feet. When Dave Stein and Silver Petroselli had the design responsibility, the conceptual responsibility in the fall, the size went down to 13,000 square feet, and now during the middle of the bid process, someone decided somewhere behind closed doors it was going to be 10,000 square feet. Jason, is it important to get the right size or the right price?
I think it's important to get something that the people are going to want to utilize.
But how do we know what 10,000 square feet looks like?
Well, again, they're utilizing a lot of other plans that have been drawn up in other communities of similar size. I know Enfield was talked about, and I believe it was Southington. I could be mistaken. They went to other communities of similar size that had community type pools, and they did these types of things where they kind of mapped out the usage there. And I think that, especially with like the splash pad concept for the very, very small children, that's always a nice thing to have. And if you have that in between the two basins, that's another advantage. Because years and years and years ago when I was a kid and we used the very, very large community pool, we didn't have the type of health requirements. When there's a biological in the pool, someone gets a bloody nose or something like that, they have to filtrate out the entire pool. That's a huge basin to clean.
Well, but I'm on a slightly different point, and I think what we're going to have to do is just end it with watch for it to be the conclusion, because every example of a pool listed at the town council meeting where this was brought up was either the second pool in that town. So they used New Britain, for example, and they said, New Britain has a pool, 10,000 square feet or smaller. It's their second pool. They never told you that. And every other town they listed, either it was the second pool or they had another swimming option like a beach or a lake or something. Well, they could point to no town that had a zero edge design where, it's a gently dish thing with a footprint as small as 10,000 feet. I feel like I'm preaching a little bit.
No.
And that's a watch for it. Because,
right. No, it's smart to say. I mean, New Britain's obviously much larger than Wallingford, but it doesn't go. I didn't miss that. Yeah. I understood that, but I don't know that everybody did.
Yeah. Let's go back to the local scene. Okay. Who else is running as Democrats for the council?
Well, we've got Gina and Vinny are running. I know that Jesse's coming back.
Jesse Reynolds?
Jesse Reynolds is coming back. I know there's a couple of other folks that were speaking tonight. I don't know how the entire set of ballot fell out, because I know that there were some people that approached that wanted to speak to the committee, and they went to the interview session. Some backed out. So I don't have the final tally with everybody that's going to be running for Board of Ed or
Is Mr. Conroy going to run? Bruce
his name has come up, and it kind of there was a bounce between him potentially coming back to run for council or potentially looking at Board of Ed, and I don't know where that settled, so I don't want to speak out of turn.
Is Mr. Stancuna looking for an endorsement?
He approached, and again, I don't know that he went through the entire process of asking for an interview and doing a sit down. So I know he sent an email. He talked to me briefly, not about that, but about a couple of other things. But I don't know where that fell either.
Jamie Hine.
Jamie has requested to get the endorsement. I believe he was speaking this evening. I had to leave before everybody got up.
Ralph.
Well, I'm just, since we're talking about who's going to run,
sure.
An issue we haven't talked about in a while, but I'm wondering, and I apologize because her name escapes me, but there was a Board of Education member who ran as a Democrat and then voted for Roxanne McKay as the chair. And
that was Tammy Raccio.
Tammy Raccio.
Yeah.
So will Tammy Raccio be getting the party support?
I know she approached. I believe she sat through the interview process, but obviously I won't know that answer until July when they do the actual endorsements.
Well, but we'll put you on the spot a little bit.
That's why he's here.
Right. Right. So I mean, you've certainly been around politics. You've had to vote for chairs. What do you think about her vote? And then what do you think about the party nominating her again?
I will say that I will speak just for myself.
Yes, right.
I approached, when I heard that was going on, I spoke with her and I said, listen, I am never going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to ever tell anybody what to do. I go, I believe myself personally, and I believe the party will have less issue if you vote for her rather than if you endorse her. I mean, she made the endorsement. That's caused a pretty big chasm. I mean, there's almost no gray area with her. There's people that either support her because she stuck to her guns, or they don't because of what she did. There's no gray. There's other people that got, well, I could give or take this person. When you ask people, they're pretty decisive, and it's kind of right down the middle right now.
What about John Sullivan?
So I don't also know where he is in the process. I've spoken with him a couple of times personally when I've run into him. He expressed earlier on in the year, like January, February timeframe, an interest in taking a look at running again. He's also involved with the 2020 event, the Wallingford 350. So I know he's busy with the parade. He did send an email to the officers that he did want to kind of follow the path of getting an interview and finding out what that entailed. And I don't know whether he followed through on that. I know that.
Okay, so
I know that he approached them about it, but I don't know whether he did or he didn't.
Well, if he's interested, he wouldn't be endorsed, I assume. He would have to
Again, that would be another one.
What do you think? What do you think?
I would be very hard pressed to believe that they would put him up for an endorsement.
Would you vote to endorse him?
I don't think that I could, because of the manner in which that he made his stance. And this is coming from the guy who stepped off the party back in 2007. I did that. I stepped away. I feel my process was a little bit more defined, and I think John's was different. And I don't know that I could vote for him, but I would say that if he got the votes, I'd work alongside him, because that's what's really required.
So, themes, if any, for the Democratic Council candidates.
I think
issues.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think all of us are concerned about the generic things that everybody's concerned about: roads, maintenance, infrastructure, upkeep, police, fire, safety.
But Republicans too. So that doesn't distinguish Democrats.
So I think what the Democrats are trying to do a little bit more so is try to be a little bit more inclusive, bringing in the people. Like, for example, with respect to like the discussions around the school. What are the people looking for in that school renovation stuff? And how can we deliver back the information that they might need to either settle the way they feel or get a better understanding? Because a lot of people are emotional about different topics in town, and they don't know all the ins and outs of it. So I think the Democrats are trying to bring people in, get them involved. I mean, we have the things that we'd like to stand. We'd like to narrow those. The budgets over the years, the budgets have been kind of padded on both sides on what we think we're going to get for revenue and what we're going to actually spend. And we've tried in vain to tighten that up on the council. And I think that's more of what we want to do. We want to be a little bit better about forecasting, a little bit better about what we're driving. And then, of course, too, the base of that, what are we doing to try to recover lost businesses in town?
Well, just to piggyback on that, because Jared Lew, who is seeking the party's nomination for mayor again, it seems like in the op-eds that he's written for us, he's emphasized economic development, which is not new. I mean, there isn't a candidate.
Then he Tester ran on that.
Right. But I think what he's doing a little different is, and it has some appeal to me, is he's suggesting a more active role on the mayor's part and on elected leaders' part. So where does economic development fit into discussions about
everyone's in favor of it.
Right.
Everyone's in favor of economic development. It is the policy or the specific legislative choice that would distinguish Democrats from Republicans, if any. And
good point.
But
No, I think that's right. So, I mean, a lot of times people, why did you buy Brothers? Why do we buy that? We're going to tear that down. It's going to be more of the parking lot. But we want to be able to develop that. We want to be able to present that as part of a parcel, whether it's parking or actual development on that lot, so that we can get more things that are built downtown. The whole Parker Place apartment scenario over there has sprung up. Now when that's completed, and that will get filled. Once it's filled, those people are going to be looking for local areas to go. Now, they might be up over by Hall Avenue, it might be across Route 5, but without planning, you can't build things that are going to attract people on tiny little parcels of land. We need to have 2 or 3 co-joined pieces of property. And the problem with that is the person in the middle, they're holding out for more money. So without taking a proactive approach to that, you're never going to be able to get built the demand that's needed. And those people at Parker Place, they'll hop on the train for $5 and go to Meriden where it's getting done.
So my last question on this thread, I'm really looking for a short answer on this, if possible. And the hypothetical is someone comes in from out of town, unaffiliated, no leanings left or right, Republican or Democrat. And they come to you for advice and they say, I don't know if I should vote for Republicans on the town council or I should vote for Democrats on the town council. And you say, well, of course you should vote for Democrats as opposed to Republicans because. Finish that sentence.
Because we are trying to do the best that we can for the town by maintaining the costs and trying to find creative ways to increase the services, getting more of what the people need and want. And not necessarily just be a driver of let's just spend more, which sounds funny being a tax and spend Democrat. We're trying to find creative ways to contain costs and expand services so that it's inviting and inclusive for the people that want to have these different things in town.
Meanwhile, I'm plagiarizing the Colbert Show. Did you ever watch it? Meanwhile, as you look back on the town council since the election of 2017, any accomplishments stand out? Was it sort of a unremarkable year as far as accomplishments, sort of an unexciting year, or something you can point to that you're particularly...
I like to think there were a lot of small victories. There were very, very...
Name just a couple.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that we've brought forward the different things with respect to... I mean, community pool is obviously a bigger one because that came out right in the budget. But I mean, we've talked about different things, the townwide paving project. We're trying to get Public Works to respond a little bit more fluidly with things that are going on. And they've been pretty good. I mean, when we've called about people that are looking at potholes and issues or snow removal things, they've been very responsive. So these are small things. They're service-oriented things where people would say, well, the old argument is government will get around to it when they get around to it. I'd like to think that there's been little small victories in that. Things like a lot of the furniture that gets left by the side of the road, those things are getting cleared up a little bit more quickly. A lot of the dumping that's been going on, we've been getting that addressed a little bit more quickly. So it's not like we saved $100,000 here by doing this, but it's been all these small little incremental service add-ons and quality of life things that I think we've started to move forward.
So I gather from the vote on Tuesday night, that's last night on May 14, there was a problem that you saw with respect to how the town goes about securing bid waivers so that goods and services can be purchased without competitive bidding. What was the problem that you saw?
So I have a fundamental issue of those bid waivers being dropped into the consent agenda, because the consent by nature basically says nobody's really going to want to discuss these things. There's really not a lot of discussion around them, so we should just pass them because this has been past practice. This is the end result will always be this. There shouldn't be a lot of discussion, and we just want to put them through. Now, in the past, I've had them removed, and I've asked departments to come, and a lot of times it's gone down where I'm the only dissenting vote anyway. The arguments are basically justified. We have special vendor that can only handle these red cups. Nobody else can handle a red cup. This is the only department that knows how to handle a red cup. And they make the argument towards, maintaining and operating the red cup. And I said, have we ever looked if the blue cup could do the same thing, maybe for less money? And it kind of like the conversation stops. So I don't know whether the blue cup is even valid for the discussion or not. But these are the things I bring up. Are we looking at?
So what was the problem? You were in the minority. No one cared. You're all by yourself on that.
Seems like the argument always come back. Well, it's never as simple as a red cup. It's something that's ingrained, like radio.
But it seems the council was not interested.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably the best way to say it.
So why wasn't the council interested?
I don't know. I guess they felt like there were bigger things to tackle, other things to address. I always looked at it as if there's an embedded system that only one person knows how to fix, what happens when it becomes outdated? What happens when that business closes? What do we do then? Yeah. So I'm always looking at it from that aspect.
Well,
and just so I can clarify, so was this a list of bid waivers for the coming fiscal year?
Yeah, okay. Multiple departments.
So how many?
Probably, I mean, if I'm just guessing off that, 20 departments. 20
departments, they list all their no bid.
How many individual vendors do you suspect were on the list?
I to be fair, I couldn't answer. So at a minimum, there was at least one per department. So anywhere from 20 to, 40.
And no one else?
They list them. I mean, every department lists it, but...
I'm sorry, no one else had any objection to that?
Because every year, every time I bring it up, every time I've removed it, there's been minimal discussion and they just vote it through.
So here's an easy one to deflect. And you'll see what I mean by the word deflect in a minute. So the Board of Ed had on its bid waiver list, among other things, its law firm.
Right.
Its law firm. And the rationale it gave was something like, well, it has knowledge of past contracts and things like that. And there's probably 3 to 5 major law firms in the state of Connecticut that does public sector education law. Any one of those law firms would do a capable, competent job, but is put on the consent agenda for a bid waiver. And I've seen department heads in the past, I'm not talking about this year, so uninformed about the bid waiver process that they would say, we feel more comfortable with this vendor. We know the products, we know the people, the service is good. We just feel more comfortable, unaware that is the precise argument to insist on a bid when you start getting cozy, But to say that we have to have this one law firm for all eternity, because the rationale could make sense this year, the following year, the following year, the following year, so on and so on and so forth. So probably, let's make up a number, Jason, 25 bid waiver, 25 vendors. With the proper research, the three of us, we could probably find 4 or 5 that really should go out to bid. If we researched the products they sell and just Googled the products, I bet we could do that. But I think what happens as far as process goes, this is dropped on the council with less than a week sort of to prepare alongside of this budget. And there is no sort of awareness during the budget workshop process that same department that is coming in front of us or you or the council is going to come up with 6 bid waivers. There's no thought at that time. Go through your bid waivers now so we have time to think about it. And if that request was made, they probably say, well, we're not ready. But if you get them ready, if Cervoni sends a letter, say at the time of your budget workshop, come in with all your bid waivers, and if you don't, you're not going to get them. You'll have to come back in an individual meeting. Would that work?
I think that's really kind of what I was pushing for in the past. I basically, when I sent my request in, I actually removed another item that actually got withdrawn from the consent agenda, so it wasn't even discussed that night.
Yeah.
And I basically said to the chairman and the vice chair, Cervoni and Laugh, and I go, I'm not going to make you pull these because I'm going to be the only dissenting vote anyway. I go, we can remove them, and I'll vote yes on the rest of the consent agenda, or just leave them, and when I vote no, you'll know why. And he didn't remove them because, I basically said I'm willing to discuss them if you're willing to pull them. If you don't want to pull them, you know why. And they were left on. So that's pretty much the message. The message, I left it in their court to either separate them or leave them, knowing I would vote no, and I voted no on the entire consent agenda because those items were left there. And we don't discuss things on the consent agenda, so it just goes down, and that's the end of it.
I think part of the oversight responsibility part of the oversight responsibility is to be sort of like an audit, like the IRS. You don't ever know why you're audited, but pick a few out each year, pick a few bid waivers out each year, or pick a few departments out each year, and so they know when they put certain vendors on a bid waiver list, they know that they may invite some scrutiny, and they maybe are a little bit more careful about what goes on the bid waiver list if they know someone is watching and asking questions and doing some research in advance. But if they get the idea that it's going on the consent agenda year after year after year, and it's always going to be unanimous or 8-1, you can get pretty sloppy. Okay. You can get pretty sloppy on your bid waivers and throw stuff on there because you're comfortable with the service. And
I've often argued that, and I've always used the technology argument. So if I had bid and won a contract with the Record Journal to maintain the desktops or laptops in your environment, and you guys decided to start bid waivering me, I might get lazy about it after a while. I'm like, you know what? I bid $100,000 last year. I'll tell them, look, I could probably do for 97 because some costs came down. You guys will be like, that's great. We're not even going to put it up for vote. You're saving us money. When actually the costs of laptops have dropped by 20%. Yeah. And because you're dealing with getting the news and information out, you're not paying attention to that. Then someday when I don't do it anymore and you actually have to go out to bid, or just some internal process change, you find out that work that I was doing for now $96,000 a year could have been bid out for 45 or 55 because hardware dropped so much. And some of the stuff is being outsourced. But you never know till you go and ask, and you ask by getting bids.
And another way of doing this, Ralph, is that's a good story for the Record Journal. The challenge is to make bid waivers interesting. Right. But if you could make bid waivers interesting and do a story in the Record Journal, suddenly you would find a lot of counselors very interested in all these bid waivers if you put that story in April or beginning of May, about how many bid waivers over the past were granted, because that's when they pay attention, when there's a story. And it might be an interesting story. Add up all the money, that goes by bid waiver. Anyway. Meanwhile, tolls. A couple meetings back, Craig Fishbein wanted to have this controversial resolution put on the town council agenda protesting tolls. Chairman Cervoni, he was here on the show, and he explained that he felt he had no choice putting it on the agenda, even though it was a symbolic, and in my view, this is not Chairman Cervoni's words, grandstanding, sort of a divisive, attention-getting play. Nevertheless, it got on the agenda. So I want to break this thread into two pieces, Jason. First, your thoughts on that kind of a matter getting on a town council agenda, because there could be resolutions on all manner of controversial issues. So let's get to that before the merits of tolls. Sure.
I mean, so I found it interesting that the idea got brought forward to us, because we don't really have any control over that. I mean, if anybody does, Fishbein does, because he's a state rep. That's at his level. But I think the premise was, we've kind of stepped in that arena before as council. We've done little things that were subjective, send a message to Hartford. We want to raise the age for tobacco sales and vaping to 21. We can kind of make our little ordinance around that. And by doing that, it's actually some action we've taken, and it also sends a message. This was completely symbolic.
So you're okay with it?
You know what? In the grand scheme of things, I guess I am. I didn't mind that we had to have a conversation about it.
So at the time that this came up, you didn't like Craig Fishbein's anti-toll resolution. Do you still feel the same way?
So that's a very good question, and thanks for asking it. Because I actually, my big issue that evening was the fact that it was only a no vote. Let's not do tolls. And it didn't bring up a solution. So infrastructure needs to be fixed. His thing was, let's send a message to Hartford that Wallingford says no. Now, I could have maybe gotten on board with enough information if I had something else to do, something else to support, or something else to look at. Right up to that point, the only thing that I was hearing was tolls. I mean, there's always the quintessential, let's cut spending and put the money back in the transportation budget. But his thing was, let's just vote no on tolls and then nothing else. So that evening I voted no.
You voted against
The motion
against Craig's
against the motion.
Okay. Since then, you've changed your mind.
I've softened my stance because I got educated. I got more information. So what I mean by that is
You're against tolls now.
well, no, not necessarily.
You're in favor of tolls.
No, because and it sounds like I'm waffling, but I'm really not because
Okay.
neither solution is baked. And what I mean by that is we do still need to do something, but the two choices that were being delivered are not baked. And what I mean by that is, so let's take the toll argument because that was the one I initially leaned toward. My big issues with that is that tolling overdid it. If you're a Connecticut resident, you could have potentially paying upwards of a nominal resident. Forget a traveling salesman.
So you're in favor of fewer toll.
I'm favor of a
toll,
cap. If we're going to toll, there needs to be a cap. We need
Cap.
to go back to
A cap on what?
a maximum cap
On the amount of revenues tolls take in?
on an individual. So back in the 80s, you could put a toll plate on the front of your car. You could pay a flat fee and drive as much as you want on the Wilbur Cross Parkway.
I don't want to get into the weeds on it. It's enough, I think, that a modified fee system. You're in favor of some unspecified.
If we need to go that way,
fee
yes.
system, which Craig would be furious at.
Right.
Craig
You need
Fishbein,
the cap. Right. You need the
Okay.
cap.
All right.
How hard you're going to hit Connecticut people.
Yeah. Okay. Ralph.
Well, just a more of an overall observation.
Yeah.
Which is, right as in the lead up to the 2019 election, which was a state election, and was not a good. We elected
election.
this past
18,
election.
yeah, 18.
Okay, we elected a governor. We elected the state legislature mainly, and if you go back in time, in the months preceding that election, Washington D.C. was just it amazed me as we were headed to a state election how much Washington D.C. and the president was such an issue. I mean, the letters we would get, the feedback we would get, and in the end, it really helped Democrats who won the governor's race, picked up seats, and I think tolls was a way for Republicans now to kind of, as we're coming into the next election, and certainly tolls are an issue, but they've really, in my mind, gotten Democrats back on their heels on this toll issue, not only at the state level, but even local councilmen and things like that. So it's more of just of an observation.
Well, that may be true, but I think that's because the Democrats have allowed that to happen
Sure.
and been too passive. So Craig Fishbein, what Craig Fishbein wants is about $800 million bonded. He wants to pay principal and interest on about $700 to $800 million. That's Craig Fishbein. Craig Fishbein, the fiscal conservative, and his right-wing, bloc, they want to bond $700 to $800 million a year. That's their fiscal responsibility, paid for all by Connecticut. Residents and motorists, not by the out-of-staters. So the way not to be on your heels is to be on your toes and punch back harder. The Republican plans, which is basically you won't feel it, you won't know it, you'll never know we've instituted this bonding program. It won't squeeze out any programs that you may want. This is what Candelora was saying. Right, basically.
No.
Says, if we don't do tolls, our plan, you'll never know.
Right.
It's the most disingenuous program ever. And so when someone says, aren't you back on your heels? Say, no, I'm on my toes. You've got a stinky, smelly, disingenuous program that you're going to bond, this unimaginable amount paid for all by Connecticut people and foregoing the out-of-state driver. Tolls are painful. They're not pretty. They're ugly. I agree. But the bonding is the worst plan. If you've got something better, fine. Let's move on. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
If I could throw maybe one more thing on it.
Absolutely.
The idea with that though is the future wave is changing. And what I mean by that is you're not getting the gas revenues the way that you used to. Cars are more fuel efficient, and since election day, I haven't paid 1 red cent towards the roads. I've got an all-electric car.
Yeah.
And I know that we're a few and far between, but there's more and more of that. And there's more and more people on the train.
Yeah, gas tax revenues
Doesn't work anymore.
Have been relatively flat, Len Suzio notwithstanding.
It's going down. It's good, and it's not going to generate the income that the roads
And then,
need.
as long as we're talking about the Record Journal, as long as
Were we talking about the Record Journal?
No, I just
thought we were talking
I just pivoted. I just pivoted in my own
good,
direction.
good.
So now
That
you
wasn't my
have-
fault.
That had nothing to do with Jason. So now you have on the editorial page, you have Len Suzio,
Right.
You have Steve Knight,
Right.
And you have Chris Powell. You have 3 conservatives on state and local issues.
Right.
Where is the progressive or the liberal or even the moderate? Michael Rohde just talks about flowers in Meriden. That's all he talks
well,
about.
sometimes you write for us, and we'd be willing to have you back.
It's my responsibility to balance out these guys.
No, not at all. Not at all. But what I'm saying is we're certainly open to other perspectives,
All right.
and we're mostly.
I just wanted to
Since
make
you
that.
opened up the can of worms,
yes.
we are mostly. I'm glad to actually hear you say that because
Yeah.
we are mostly regarded on the editorial page as far too liberal.
on national issues. I'm talking about.
I just think in general we are.
Well, Steve Knight probably thinks that you're way too liberal. I mean,
Right, but you know our editorial board. It's me,
I just
Jeff
know Len
Kurz,
Suzio, Steve
Glenn
Knight,
Richter. Well, but the editorials every
and
day.
Chris Powell, 3 arch conservatives
Right,
talk about state
and I don't want to take
local
up more of Jason's time.
Yeah.
It's not my time. It's your show.
But just so the editorials that we write every day
Yeah,
are formulated by me,
Yeah.
who's not going to be ever viewed as a conservative,
right.
Jeff Kurz,
Okay.
and Glenn Richter.
I just
So
just
it's
wanted to
fairly liberal.
I
I think it's a
my
good
mind
point.
suddenly wandered.
I think it's a good point.
Let's talk about the what I like to call the school
Okay.
renovation project, which
Yes.
is this, I don't know, take your number, $100 million, $125 million, $150 million plan to redo the schools, renovate as new. Jason, what is the latest you've heard on this plan, and just your general thoughts about it, and then we'll follow up.
The last that I investigated, I went to a couple of the meetings, is that they want to get a survey out. They want to be able to basically go out there.
The Board of Ed.
The Board of Ed. They want to go out and survey what the people are interested in having. And I don't think it's going to be an open-ended survey. I think there's going to be a series of questions that are going to basically ask, what do you think about this? If given the choice of this, what would you like? So that you can't freeform 50 different options. But it seems like the very heavy leaning is still to keep 2 high schools open, which I don't know if that is necessarily the best option. And I'm curious where they're coming up with that as choices. Because the way that I look at declining enrollments, marginal population change, if not downward pressure, and the cost of having 2 big campuses open like that, I don't know where that's coming from. So I think it's easy.
I think it's easy. And after I go, I want Ralph to weigh in. The decision, first of all, they would say if they were here, we haven't made that decision. We're waiting for the survey. Yeah, but they know very well that the political, the moms and dads and the teachers, they want 2 high schools. That's what they want.
And it's emotional.
And it's emotional. The other piece of that is the case has not been made that 1 high school saves money. It has not been made. You could have a conclusory statement, well, it's just so logical that 1 high school is going to save money. But we haven't seen the spreadsheets. We haven't seen it audited. We haven't seen any serious effort to prove that and put in the bonding cost, the principal and interest on the renovation plan. So I think that's why we're going to end up with 2 high schools. If it's left to a survey, the survey will be presented to the town council, and by the time the town council gets it, I think the decision will be self-evident. Ralph, you and I had exchange observations a couple shows ago, and I said the momentum is building for a $125 million plan. I saw it at a different perspective in that the Board of Ed is getting their ducks in a row like a chess game. They're moving all their pieces. And those that, like myself, that say, a case has not been made for all this money. You haven't demonstrated why someone will learn history better in a brand new classroom. You got to make the case first. Well, no one is making that case, yet the Board of Ed is getting their ducks in a row. I think they're planning little presentations all over town to sell something that they want to have. If I'm wrong, I've had some invitations out to Board of Ed members and they don't really want to touch this show right now because of comments probably just like this. But I think that's what's coming. And then it'll go, out to the community, and a lot of folks say, yeah, I'd love to have brand new school building. Gee, that really looks nice with a Board of Ed explanatory text. Would you like a new car? Yes, you would. I can see it in your eyes. There's trouble in River City. You would like some new band instruments? Yeah. I can see it. You would like that. It gets to the council, and the council says, we just want you to fund a new study. We don't want you to pay for this. And the council, oh, goodness, yes, a new study. And that's the momentum. The community survey where they're sold, various, expensive options. I have no faith that the financial impact will be truly revealed. I'd like to see Mayor Dickinson's response to that, frankly. I'd like to see him get 750 words to all this. So the town council approves of some, more money for a study, and it's all over. And in 5 years, you're going to be looking at a bonding issue of 100. It'll be staged in over time, but in the aggregate,
20 years, yeah,
it'll be the total aggregate total of the bonding issue. Be a lot of money. You, however, Jason, I want to get specifically where you stand on this. You, I think, are in favor of what the Board of Ed is in favor of, and we don't know quite yet what they're in favor of, but assuming, arguendo, they want 2 high schools renovated as new, and assuming $125 million, you're on board with that.
No, I want to see the math, because to me, I believe that less building, less maintenance, less upkeep is going to translate into some level of savings. I think that.
So you're leaning towards one high school.
I believe there's a case for, you have to do things with both campuses. And what I mean by campus, I'm talking about Sheehan and Moran as a campus, even though they're divided by a street, and Dag and Lyman Hall, which is one campus because they're on the same footprint over there.
Yeah.
You can put a high school in one and a middle school in another and repurpose a building. And then you could even move Board of Ed. The way I looked at it was, whether it's Sheehan or Lyman Hall, you can take your pick. Probably Lyman Hall would stay the high school. Sheehan could ultimately be a middle school. Dag could be the Board of Ed offices, and Moran could be something else.
Well, look,
on those old footprints.
Look, you're chopped liver. The council is chopped liver, right? The Board of Ed is doing ultimately an end run.
Well, we're the one who's going to give them the budget to do whatever.
They're doing an end run around you, and they're doing an end run around the mayor with this survey and these little presentations all around town where they're going to, present and drum up support. And by the time it gets to you, it's too late. The decision will have been made. Let me get to my point. So why not now, before these surveys start, bring them in, tell them what you want as a council, not you personally, but 9 people say what you want to see as a process. If you want a case made for savings, who's going to make it? Is it going to be just one sentence and you take it on faith? Or do you look at the spreadsheets and the data and send it to our auditors and to see if it makes sense? You have a chance to get in during a meaningful stage of the decision-making process. And again, just like the pool, I see a very passive council because of the politics.
Well, I think on the surface, that's what it looks like. So,
yeah, it does.
If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
Quack.
I know that's, I know that's what it looks like. I've had the conversations. I've gone back and said, listen, I'm not going to vote for something that doesn't translate into either savings or better service. So when they talk about bringing forward, more STEM and more services for the students, they've got to be able to show that. And if they can't, I'm not going to be able to support it. But I'm just me.
Let me tell you, they will show it. It's the diligence and the depth of the presentation. You could have one paragraph, and we promise you it'll save $500,000 per year. If you're happy with that, that's the savings. I want to get Ralph in on this. But, I could see a very superficial, shallow conclusion that wouldn't hold up to close scrutiny. It's how much diligence do you want on a $125 million project? Ralph?
I just still don't see momentum. I think if I was in their shoes and I wanted to do a school project, I'd be dying to come on Citizen Mike and make my case. I'd be trying to get an appointment with the Record Journal editorial board. I'd be organizing letter campaigns. I see none of that. I'd get the teachers union on board. I've seen no case made that I think is going to lead to a 6-figure school project.
The reason why, in my view,
Go ahead.
the reason why the Citizen Mike show I think is off limits for this topic, and maybe the editorial board, is on this show you get challenged. You get challenged.
Yes.
You go out on with presentations and you don't really necessarily get that.
Yeah, Mike.
So they can control the narrative. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. Yeah, I want to let you finish.
No, I'm done. I should have stopped a long time
If
ago.
you think that the Citizen Mike show or the
Yeah.
Record Journal editorial board is going to challenge you,
Yeah.
what about Mayor Dickinson and the town council?
Haven't heard of Pete probably.
Well, but
haven't heard of Pete.
why not hone your arguments?
Don't know where he is.
Because you're eventually
He's
going
missing in action.
Well, I just think practice makes perfect, or imperfect, or anyhow, we'll see.
We have run out of time.
Yes, we have.
And it just started getting
It was good.
fun. Jason, but you have the final word. You got about 60 seconds on any thought that we've talked about, whether it's the school or anything else to sort of wrap up the show.
I guess the best way that I could probably wrap up stuff is, again, this all comes back to the constituent and the citizen input, because a lot of us counselors and even Board of Ed members are going to campaign for certain things that they may feel particular about, but then the rest of the time is up to what people bring to them. If they want to see things brought forward, they've got to get involved. They've got to get the information, come to us and say, listen, I don't understand how this process works, but I'd like to say A, B, and C. Well, and, let's get it done.
Let's make that the final
Yes,
word. And
definitely.
as we all know, this is the final Citizen Mike show of the seasons. We want to thank everyone for watching, whether it's on WPAA TV, who we thank very much, Bruce in the booth and studio at the front office for making all of this possible, and WPAA has been doing a real great job. So we want to thank them. We want to thank the viewers. We want to thank Jason for
Thanks for
coming
having
on
me.
the show, and all of our guests that have come on all
Absolutely.
season. We're going to take a long summer break as we usually do, and we will see you everybody next fall. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.